quite fond of that George Box quote, all models are wrong but some are useful, and I think there is no one model of strategy that is perfect panacea for every problem, and I would be horrified if a retail strategist in a third-tier Chinese city and a government relations strategist in Washington were using kind of exactly the same model of thinking. They're differently useful and usefully different. I think the agency of the future is the one that is actually able to hold two contradictory models in their head at the same time, and mobilize them to deliver great results for clients.
I think it's going to become more important, because there's going to be so much more access to creative products that unless strategy is behind it, it doesn't have a purpose. And it's got to be incredibly clear what the role of that creativity is and how it's going to actually drive that brand or drive that piece of business. Clients are going to have more access to creativity than they've ever had before, so they've got to have a better understanding of why they exist, the role that their brand can play in people's lives, and the role that the creative content's going to have in terms of building their brand and making it into something that consumers are going to connect with and love and help make contagious in some way or another.
The future of strategy in the short term is for advertising planners and strategists to start realizing that they work in marketing and to think like marketing strategists, because fundamentally that's what clients now need. They're looking at their owned estate and their earned environments that they're active in, thinking about native, thinking about what content produced, how much content is produced. They really need us to play that role, I think. And if you want to succeed in that area, you need to absorb marketing sciences. You need to understand how marketing investment pays back. It's as fundamental for us to understand that as it is for a lawyer to understand case law. And I think that's really the future of strategy in the short term.
I think clients want to build the value of their brand and the value of their business, and I think the sort of existential questions about what strategy is, who we are, how we see ourselves, whether we're feeling insecure or confident, are maybe a little bit too introspective. They're interested by people who can really add value to their companies and make stuff. I think they're not incredibly preoccupied with the semantics of how we see ourselves.
Actually, I've turned the whole team into planners. Everyone needed to think of the strategy side. It can't be divided into two different phases. It needs to be an ongoing process with everyone. You can't have creatives that don't think planning, and you can't have planners that don't think creative. So you need to mix them up in a completely new way, and we managed to do it this way.
When I started as a planner, as a strategist, I used to say that my job was to be synthetic, so take all the client data and synthesize it into one simple phrase that a creative could work with. And I still think that's more than ever the case. It's great to have metrics, but if you can't, single it down to a couple of key ideas, it's very difficult. So I think that, that job, the agency job of, clients have always had quite a lot of information. Now they just have more and more of it. But we've always had a lot. I mean, it was always a classic, even when I started 15 years ago, to have a client brief that was that big that you had to whittle down to an agency brief that was one page. I mean, maybe now the data is like this, you have to whittle it down.
We will need to elevate ourselves out of the micro decisioning level and start to think more in a marketing technology level. We'll be managing the marketing technology that can allow this to happen, tending to it. This central nervous system, as I mentioned, is effectively what a marketing stack will become when it's all integrated and self-optimizing. So for us to be able to tend to that, shape and develop it. So for example, we hear about, say, for example, a new native DSP that can construct native based on data signals on the fly, and you just literally upload the different assets and it decides for you. And knowing about that technology and to bring it into the marketing stack and then link it all together, that's a skill set that's going to be important 5 to 10 years from now.
Yeah, I think when people talk about the role of strategy, that's maybe a little bit narrow. I think there are different roles of strategy, and at Over we've got about 2,100 strategists, of which maybe 600 are in kind of brand planning, and there's vast numbers of other species of strategists who've got deep expertise in PR or analyst relations or retail strategy or shopper marketing, consumer promotion, different types of UX, digital engagement, information architecture, and I think one of the biggest roles of strategy is to be able to be a connector to join those pieces together, but it's also very important to have incredibly deep discipline depth in those spaces. I think clients are looking for that, and I think that's an important part of our offering.